Welcome to the Owning Your Sexual Self podcast, a place for you to listen and explore all things surrounding sex positivity. I'm your host, Rachel Main, sex therapist and educator, intimacy coach, awesome wife to my husband, Danny, board of directors member and team leader with Pure Romance, and best of all, a work-from-home dog mom to my favorite pups, Bane and Tater. After starting my Pure Romance business, I quickly learned how much sexuality education was lacking within my community and how much shame was placed on things like fantasies, masturbation, and sexual dysfunctions. I'm on a mission to make this world a more sex-positive place, and with this podcast, I hope to reach thousands of people. I'll bring real-life experiences to the surface and normalize them by offering a non-judgmental view. If you can get down with that, then tune in every Monday and let's change this fucking world. Oh my gosh, you guys, Instagram is at it again. Whew, I am so flippin' excited to interview today's guest, Emerson Karsh-Lombardo. Yes, Instagram has connected me once again with a total badass. I am so pumped for today's episode, seriously. One thing I've mentioned before in my world of sex therapy and sexuality education, when I was going through that program through the University of Michigan, that was really my first intro to the Kink BDSM world. And I remember thinking at the end of that program, holy moly, there is so much more for me to learn and discover in the quote-unquote kinky world. So I am super excited. So Emerson is also in the sexual education world, and she has so many things that she's planning to do with the future. She is a college student currently at the University of Kansas studying psychology and human sexuality, and she runs her Instagram account, which you can find her at the Kink Educator, and she is here to spread knowledge around kink, safe practices, and just overall sexuality education. So without further ado, I'm so excited, Emerson, to have you on this podcast. Welcome. Tell us, just tell us, how did you get first into this world? How did you know that this was the right path for you?
I had always had an interest in biology as a kid. Like, I always told everyone that I was going to be a pediatrician. Like, since the age of 5, I was like, I'm going to be a pediatrician. And then I entered high school and I flunked out of AP biology. And I was like, I really can't be a pediatrician, but I still loved biology. And then I was like, I'll just be a biology teacher, because at the time I was an assistant teacher for my local synagogue. And then a year after that, I started going to therapy, and I was like, actually, no, I want to be a therapist. So when I entered college, I entered it with the goal of becoming a therapist for kids with, for adolescents and teens. And then I stumbled upon this research group on my campus who, at the time, they were doing research on consent under the influence and what that looked like in the terms of gender. And I always had a little bit of an interest in sex and sexuality, but I never expressed that because I didn't think it was something that I could actually do a career in. And then once I found out that my university had a human sexuality major, and that they did research in sex and sexuality, I was like, okay, this is it. So I added a human sexuality major. I started joining more of the research labs, and one of the labs was on consent and kink. And that was such an eye-opening experience because I had learned so much within that lab. The main point of interest was we basically read people's responses. It was a qualitative and quantitative, not quantitative. So we read a lot of in-depth experiences about people who engaged in kink, and I started to realize that a lot of these kink actions were being done by all my peers without the education. I personally was starting to engage in kink, and I didn't have the background, I didn't have the knowledge, and so I started to really get into the education part of things, because I noticed that all of my peers, for example, were engaging in choking, and choking has become very mainstream within my age group and my generation. But no one was doing it correctly. And I started reading all these stats of death within erotic asphyxiation. And so my main goal in coming into kink education was educating people about choking. And so I started doing that like on a very organic level at my university. And then all my peers started coming to me and asking me lots of random questions. All of a sudden I was getting text messages and I was like, okay, I think I'm being a sex educator right now. So then I went to a local nonprofit who like does sex education in the area. I shadowed them. I saw the work and I was like, I was getting the skills. I did sex education, just normal, like what is consent, what is a penis, vagina at the local high school. And then I took those skills and merged them into kink education because I was also noticing that there wasn't a lot of it on Instagram, which is where I got a lot of my education. And there are also a lot of sex educators on Instagram that don't have kink knowledge. And we're perpetuating some like negative things about kink and choking. I saw a post the other day that was like bruise my esophagus from like a pretty well-known, like a pretty big following sex educator. And I was like, no, like that's not.
I saw that. It was like flower petals on the bed.
Yeah.
I totally saw that. Yes.
And I was just internally fuming because I was like, that you should never bruise an esophagus because your esophagus is behind your trachea. And so you should never put any pressure. And that's just such a strong misconception. I saw all the comments and everyone was like, yes, like I love this, like lots of smiley faces. And I was like, no. So I decided to basically take things into my own hands and create my Instagram to do some kink education. Cause I also noticed that it can be really hard to get into the kink community. There's a lot of barriers, which is understandable because it is you need the knowledge to enter the community, but I was not seeing people accessing that knowledge. And there are BDSM educators out there, but they were using language that you would have to have a little bit of knowledge about. Like they were talking about aftercare and rack and SSC and things that if somebody wants a little bit of interest or had a little bit of interest, there's a gap in knowledge. So I didn't necessarily see gatekeeping from the kink community, but I saw some barriers of entry, especially since because of social media and media and like TV, kink can seen as like dark and dirty and black and red and leather. And that can also be a barrier because that's not just all kink, even though that's how we view kink now. So that's basically how I got to where I am. I know that's a long tangent.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And so I'm very similar when it comes to just the education piece of sex in general. And I think that is the majority of what people are missing is like the sex education that we get in growing up is shit, basically. I've said that on pretty much every episode here that I've recorded. But especially around kink. So sex already being such a taboo topic, and then you throw, okay, let me bring some whips and chains and tie you up into the mix and blindfold you, take away your sense of sight and touch and all that stuff. And it's like, for sure people are not comfortable talking about that if they're not even comfortable talking about penis and vagina. So you mentioned the education piece is the most important. If you were to, in like 5 minutes or less, give us like a kink 101, what would you say are the most important things for people to know education wise if they were interested in delving into this side of their self?
I think definitely definitions. So BDSM, bondage, dominance, sadomasochism, masochism, or the S will sometimes be replaced with submissive. Masochism, so bondage is tying somebody up. Dominance is basically being charged. It's part of dynamics. And then submissive is being, I'm thinking being submissive, even though that's, is basically being not in control of the dom, because I think that's another misconception, but not having this, like within the power dynamic, the sub does not have the power within the dynamic. And then sadomasochism and masochism is either enjoying giving pain or enjoying receiving pain. So I think just having just that definition, and then consent. There's RAC, which is risk aware. Why am I forgetting? Risk aware consensual kink. And it basically touches on how every kink has a risk within it, no matter what. Being aware of those risks and consenting around those risks. And then I would say another important topic would be aftercare. Within a kink scene or within play, a lot of psychological things can happen. So your body can release a lot of different chemicals, a lot of endorphins, and people can enter things called spaces. So there's like subspace, there's top space, there's dom space, pup space. If you're doing pup play, little space, all of those are kink terms, but it's basically like an umbrella term of the psychological space that you enter, where your feelings are more euphoric. Sometimes you have more of a flying, floating feeling. It's similar to how somebody would describe an orgasm, but it's kind of longer and more bodily instead of how one would like describe an orgasm. So once people leave the play or the scene, once like kink ends, there's some things called drops where you kind of lose all of those endorphins and adrenaline. And so it's really vital to take care of yourself and to have the nurturing and the cuddling and the communication afterwards. And so that's a huge part of kink is aftercare. And just taking care of your partners after. Usually it's focused on subs, but it's just as important for doms or tops, because within a scene, you do enter different spaces and you do enter different psychological areas that you don't necessarily engage in every day. So letting your body relax and get back to reality is like essential for aftercare. I would also say to somebody who wants just a quick BDSM 101 that kink doesn't always have to be sex and sex doesn't always have to be kink. You can engage in kink without having any sort of sex at all. It is inherently sexual, but that doesn't mean that there has to be any sort of penetration, any sort of oral sex, any sort of anything along those lines. I also would say that the media shows kink a lot with lots of different toys, but you can engage in kink without big $100 toys or under the bed restraints or anything. Just be cautious that the things that you are using are like body safe. A lot of people will go to like Home Depot and get rope, when in reality, that can cause more like rubbing or like burns. So just to be, if you want to use toys, you don't have to use toys to engage in kink, but to really like any sex toy, to research it.
Yeah, amazing, so good. So you said you're in the field of research, and so you're doing a lot of quantitative research, meaning you're collecting people's responses. You're not just collecting numbers. And so what are the common things that come up in your research in terms of challenges that people might mention?
So I've done 2 research projects on kink, and I'm starting my own personal one for my senior thesis. The first one was on consent within the terms of BDSM. And I think the largest thing that we came across was that people we talked a lot about aftercare in that, and we saw a lack of this will sound bad, like medical aftercare. Like after an impact scene sometimes, or like, which is spanking or hitting of areas, sometimes there needs to be like medical attention. So sometimes ice for the bruises, or if there's any open wounds or anything. So we saw a lot of lack in that within the research. We were mostly focusing on who the consenting parties were. So we came and discovered that basically the terms that we use are subs give in consent, and doms use out consent, which is kind of similar to safe words. So within the dynamics, doms will ask for the consent and the subs will give the consent. And that also goes along with safe words, and how in any scene you should use a safe word. You should like set a safe word before entering the scene to basically like stop the scene no matter what. There's also like the red light safe word system, where red means stop, yellow, like red means like hard stop, like everything needs to stop right now. Yellow means, okay, I'm getting a little uncomfortable, or this has become a little too painful, or I want to slow things down a little bit. And then green means everything is okay. So sometimes how the red light, the stoplight safe word system works is the dom will ask, so it's out consent, and the dom will ask, is it green, yellow, red? And then the sub will give in the consent. So that was something that we basically discovered. I don't think that's very much in the academic side of kink. It's not, definitely, those aren't terms that like kink education is using, if that makes sense, like the kink world. So I think there might be a disconnect there, because it's really hard to do research in kink. There's not a lot of kink researchers out there. Like my senior thesis, I wanted to do research on my peers basically engaging and choking, but I had to change it into more of an educational senior thesis, because I don't have any of the professors at my university to basically like ethically oversee me doing this kind of research, since they don't have the background. There's no one I'm in Kansas, so there's no one in Kansas that has the background within academics. So I know this isn't like the answer to your question, but sometimes there's a disconnect between academic research for kink and then the kink community itself.
Yeah, I can see that, especially just given again that it's such a taboo thing to talk about. It's like people that would choose to go into this field, I'm sure they know, you're aware, I mean yourself included, right? You're taking this huge risk, and you know that there is the community out there that needs this education. You know there's people out there that you can serve and serve well, but it's a matter of, will those people have enough confidence in themselves, or also want to take that risk to say, yes, I want to participate in your research. I want it to be known that I'm participating in the research. I want to share what I'm learning throughout this process, maybe become a kink educator themselves. But I could see that there's a lot of difficult hoops that you probably have to jump through.
Yeah, definitely.
Another thing that I've come across in my own work is it's so hard sometimes, I think, for people specifically working in the sex community. It's almost like you feel that as if you're limiting yourself to just focusing on one area, such as kink or such as education. But in fact, I've recently come to discover, it's like when we're able to find who we are able to serve well, and who we know like we're able to clearly show up for and confidently show up for each and every day, there's so much beauty in that. And in turn, then you start to attract those people that truly want to work with you, and that are truly meant to be working with you, really, is what it comes down to. So I'm excited for you. I know, like I said, I followed you, came across your page somehow through the world of Instagram. I think you give amazing content. I shared your handle in the intro, and I'll have you share it again at the end. But the content, your graphics, like everything, I think you are doing such an amazing job just giving the education to people. And especially being a college student, like that's fucking amazing. I was in your shoes, 10 years ago, and people looking at me like who the fuck are you to tell me how to consent to sex, or who are you to tell me that this is rape or this is not rape, right? Like it's so, yeah, that's like a whole nother podcast interview that we could record. But awesome. So, what would you say for listeners? So if there is someone that is, again, wanting to kind of dip their toe into this kink world, where would they even start? Where can they go to find this information?
I would say just a lot of Google. Some of the best articles are just from lots of different like magazines. There are books out there that I would check out, just simple, like what is kink, what is BDSM. There's an Instagram account, her name is @TurningViolet, and she has a BDSM 101 workshop that I think is like really good and really helpful to entering. That obviously is in a free resource, but obviously she put labor in it. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's another problem within sex education itself, but that is also a whole other podcast. And I would say definitely stay away from porn, because porn is not education.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you want to watch porn for your pleasure, that's great. Definitely do that. But as someone who does engage in kink and does research this, sometimes BDSM porn can be a little overwhelming or a little intense, especially for those tipping their toes in.
Mm-hmm.
Like any form of porn, it's over exaggerated. There are things that look painful within porn that might not be as painful in person, if that makes sense. You know, like those porn videos of like girls getting like really horrible blowjobs, like that's really hard to watch. And I would like say that that's not the education. Like BDSM porn is not BDSM education, even though they're both valid realms separately.
Yes.
And then, like I said, I would really just start just doing a ton of Googling. I happen upon my education in some of the most random places. Sometimes I'll be Googling something totally different and I'll just happen upon a new kink or a new fetish language, because a lot of these things are definitely more underground. There are Reddit forums. So if you know you have a specific fetish, for example, the fat fetish community, they have thriving Reddit threads. There's also a kink social media called FetLife. And there are like forums and threads that have specific interests. They also always have local communities. So, for example, like I know on FetLife that there's like a University of Kansas kink community, or where my school is located is Lawrence, Kansas, or there's a Kansas City one. And within those communities, they do something called munches, which are basically just meetups. It's all platonic. Like it's not a play party or anything. It's basically just meeting other kinky people in the area. Sometimes you're able to find mentors. So if you have a really strong interest in becoming a dom, you have to have a lot of skills to be a dom, because it's a lot of responsibility, and being a good dom is so important. So a lot of young doms will find mentors within FetLife or within these munches, and I think that's really important. That can also be really overwhelming for some, because some people don't, because there's a lot of language about how you have to come out as a kinky person too. So sometimes going out to munches is just too much of a social thing, and that's totally valid. Like I haven't gone to a munch because as like a young college student in this town, it's hard to be out as kinky. It was really hard for me to start my account because I got a lot of messages from like my peers basically being very confused. It's like a part of an identity, and that is stigmatized. So I think if you're comfortable, I would warn that FetLife can sometimes be hard to jump into because it can be really overwhelming. There can be a lot of overwhelming pictures. So profile pictures can be any body part ever. So that can be overwhelming. If you are, this is from my personal experience, but I also know from experiences from other people within the community that are young subs, like young female subs, you can get a lot of messages that can be really overwhelming. And on FetLife, you can't really filter out the messages. Like if you get a message and you want to block that person, you're allowed to, but it's not like on Facebook that only your friends can message you. Anyone on Fet can message you. So that's definitely a good resource. But I would say if you enter FetLife, the social media site, and you're like, this isn't for me, that's totally fine. I would say find Instagram accounts. Like I said, the fat fetish community, there's a ton of Instagram accounts. There's a ton of Reddit forums. That's a great way to find education. And What's the Safe Word on YouTube is a really great educational source. It's WATTS, the Safe Word. Okay. And they've been doing kink education for years. And I know that they're a really, really great resource for a lot of people who are entering the kink community.
Awesome. Thank you. And I will link as many of those as I can in the show notes as well if anybody's looking for direct links to those things.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I'll ask you, true or false, you have to have gone through trauma to be interested in kink.
False.
Thank you. True or false? I am a total weirdo and people are going to shame me if I am interested in kink.
False.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I did not pay her to say that. Anybody that is thinking that, like, she had no idea I was going to ask her those things, but in my work, those are the most common things that come up when people are trying to explore this is I'm the only one. I'm weird for thinking that. What is wrong with me for thinking this? This is only because I've survived a sexual trauma or vice versa. I've never experienced a sexual trauma, so why am I interested in this stuff? It is so wild. Your fantasies and your fetishes are your fantasies and your fetishes. Don't try to put so much thought into why they're happening. Just embrace that they're happening and make the best fucking time of it is my kind of take on it. But so any closing advice that you have for anyone or anything that I didn't ask you that you were really hoping to share on today's episode?
I would definitely say you're not weird. You're not messed up if you like kink.
Mm-hmm.
There's a researcher, I believe at University of Santa Cruz. He has an article on psychology.com basically talking about the psychology of kink and BDSM, and basically that people have their kink and fetish interests when they hit puberty, basically. Like I personally know I was always into, like, I started talking about bondage with my first boyfriend when I was probably like 13. We didn't engage in it, obviously, but I just, you talk to your boyfriend about what your fantasies are. And I was probably like 14. I had friends who had known their fetishes since they were 12, 11. It's something that just comes along. It's part of it's just how brains are wired, and that's not a bad thing or anything. I also would say that more people are engaging in kink than you think they are. More people are doing it without the research, without the tools, but they're definitely doing it. I can confidently say I do not have a friend or peer at my campus that has not been choked. Like, I can confidently say that. And that is a kink practice.
Yeah.
So definitely not weird. Definitely nothing is weird or messed up. I also think that that's a big, like, misconception that especially 50 Shades has come up with, that like you have to be traumatized.
Yeah.
Kink can definitely be a form as therapeutic comfort when it comes to trauma. There are a lot of forms of kink and play that can be therapeutic and healing and trauma informed, but you do not have to have gone through trauma to be interested in any of these things. And then I would say, as like a closing thought, that there's no such thing as being kinky enough. I think that once you enter the community, or if you want to enter the community or you're dipping your toes in, you see a lot of people who are going to play parties or are doing a wide range of kink activities, whereas maybe your interest is only in bondage, or maybe your interest is only in pup play or pet play, and like that's totally normal and valid. And I think that there can be imposter syndrome within the kink community and being like, oh, if I'm only in, like, if somebody says like, oh, if I'm only into bondage, then like I really shouldn't be a part of this community. Like, I'm not valid enough. But there's no such thing as being kinky enough, and there's no such thing as being too kinky. And just not to compare yourself to other people, because at the end of the day, no matter how public it can be, kink is something that happens with trust between trusting adults, one or more, and to not judge others, but to not let yourself be judged by others or by yourself, because I think there's a lot of comparison everywhere. but I've definitely seen a lot of comparison within the kink community, and it's a really welcoming and open community. Like, it's a great community. It's one of my favorite communities that I've ever been in, but I definitely struggle with thinking I'm not kinky enough, but I also see that from others.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no such thing as being too kinky or kinky enough.
I love that. Just embrace your kink, whatever end of the spectrum you're on.
Exactly. If you like one specific thing, that's great. You can just do that one specific thing. You don't have to try every flavor of the rainbow. You don't have to go to Baxter's and Robbins and try every 31 flavors. If you like chocolate and sometimes you want to add chocolate fudge in it, do it. Like, that's what you like, your interest. And if you want to try all the flavors ever, as long as you're doing it in a safe, consensual, healthy way, then go for it.
Yes. I love it. So I know people are going to fall in love with this episode. So just, will you mind sharing again how people can follow you or where they can find your info at?
Yeah. So the main way to find me is on Instagram. It's at the Kink Educator, spelled just like normal, no spaces, no periods, no hyphens or anything. And just shoot me comments, DMs, anything. It's a public account. So yeah, at the Kink Educator.
I love it. Great. Thank you so much again, Emerson. This was amazing. I know I learned a lot today, and I know that you just, in the last 30 minutes, normalized so many things for so many people. And like I said, I told her before we hit record, I was like, I know you're about to school me in some things on this episode, so I'm also very eager to learn about this. So I appreciate your time today, and I know that, like I said, I know I have a lot of listeners that are interested in this, so I'm sure you'll be getting some DMs here in the next few weeks, definitely. So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Yes, all right. Well, until next time, hit up your local kink educator or your local kinky person, friend in your life, and go have some fun, you guys. Seriously, embrace it. Thank you so much for listening today and helping me change the world by spreading sex positive awareness. If you love the show, please subscribe so you never miss an episode, and leave a review for others to see. If you want to see me on the daily, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram under Rachel Main, or check out my Linktree website in the show's bio for direct links to all my pages. You can also shop my Pure Romance store or become a Pure Romance business owner yourself by visiting pureromance.com/RachelUC. Thank you again so much. Until next week, go out there and own your sexual self.